Hello everybody. So today we are talking about domain and range, which means that we also have to talk about discrete and continuous data. But let's just start with domain and the range. So when we're talking about the domain, it is all possible x values. So that means we're going to have to look to the x-axis to figure them out. And our x-axis is like that. And then range is all the possible y values. So we're going to have to look at the y-axis to figure that out. Okay? Steps for success: identify the x or the inputs, identify the outputs or the y, and then write all possible values for the domain and range. So all possible values. If we have discrete data, it's going to be a limited set of numbers that are all the possible values. When we have continuous data, there's kind of this infinite amount, and we have to write that as an interval. So let's go back and remember what that looks like. Okay, so first we have try to guess. Hopefully you guessed discrete data. So first we have discrete data. Discrete data. Why is this discrete data? Because the points are separate. There's nothing connecting them. Therefore, they are not continuous, but they are discrete. For discrete data, let's go ahead and find the domain and range. So first we're going to find the domain. And like I said earlier, to find the domain, we have to look at the x-axis, okay? So let's look at our x-axis to figure this out. So here's our first point on the x-axis, that is -4. So -4. Our next point right here on the x-axis, this would be -3. This point right here is -2. This one's at 1, -1. This one would be at 0. And y'all can speed up the video at any point. This one would be at 1. This one would, oh, we just did that one. This one would be at 2. So these are all the x values that are used for this data, right? All the x values used for this data. So now let's look at the range. And like we said earlier, the range is, let me get a thicker one. The range is all the y values. So we're going to have to look at the y values for these points. So if I take this point to my y-axis, and we always start at the lowest point, right? If I take this point to my y-axis, this would be -3. So our first number in our range is -3, and then -2, and then -1, and then 0, 1, 2, and then 3. That I got from right here, that would be 3. So these are all of our y values, and these are just like those little squiggly brackets. So now that we went over that, and if you need to replay that again, if you're confused where these numbers came from, please play it again. But if not, now let's talk about, oh, I think my dog is, I think I woke her up. Oops. Okay, so now let's talk about what actually would make us know that it's discrete data in a word problem, because we are going to see those. And let me move this up a little bit so we have a little bit more space. I know y'all can't do it, sorry. So discrete data is counted whole numbers. So we kind of talked about this when we first went over it. Counted whole numbers. No values in between. And you can see like they don't connect. There's no values in between these numbers. and then answers are separate. And then let's do a little example. So whenever you see either, you're going to be talking about either this or that, nothing in between. That's a keyword to know discrete data. Whenever you see monthly, that's like once a month. So that's also like it's happening once a month. It's not connecting discrete data. Annually, that's saying like once a year, etc. If you need to pause to copy, go ahead and pause. But if not, let's go ahead and move on to continuous data. Hold on, let me just zoom in over here. So here we have continuous data. How do I know? Because every point on this line is connected. So right here, we would write continuous data. And for continuous data, we are going to have to kind of create, I think my brightness is lowering too much. There we go. For continuous data, we are going to have to create an interval. We kind of talked about this the first time. And to create an interval, kind of like an inequality set, we're going to need our little inequality basis. So here's our first one. Here's our second one. So let's go ahead and start with our domain. Sorry, y'all, I'm a little bit sick. So here's our domain right here. All the x values, right? And if we notice this time, look, we're starting at -4, and it is every x value up to +2. So the way that we're going to do that is start with -4, and then we need to know if it's going to be open circle or closed circle. It's a closed circle. So we're going to do this, less than or equal to, all the way to 2. And we're going to put an x in between because this is the x-axis, okay? So -4 is less than or equal to x, is less than or equal to y, also less than or equal to, because we have another closed circle up here. And I'll go ahead and put that there so that you know like where I got that from. And 2. So that would be our domain. Okay, so now let's find our range. And like we said earlier, range is all of our y values. So we're going to be looking to the y-axis for this. So our lowest y value is in between -2 and -4, so that would be -3. Oh, and I didn't even need that earlier. I apologize. -3, and we're still using is less than or equal to. This time y, because the range is the y-axis, is less than or equal to, and then in between 2 and 4 is 3. And this is just our highest point. That's where I got that from. So that's what our range would be. Now let's talk about how we could identify continuous data in a word problem or a table or anything. So first of all, it is usually measured and decimals are included. And then we have an infinite values in between. Answers on a continuous scale. And then some examples. Like how would you know? Well, if they're talking about weight, typically continuous, length, any kind of measures, right? All those things are continuous, like the ounces of the ice cream or the milliliters of the Gatorade. So let's turn our page. So let's go over this first problem right here. Okay, so a music studio can be rented for $85 per hour. This is the slope. I don't know if y'all can see. $85 per hour is the slope. Always first, think about it. It's the change in y over the change in x. So first we're talking about our y, which is dollars, and then our x, which is the hours. And then it says the studio can be rented for either. That is one of our keywords to know that it's discrete data. So I'll put discrete. I'm going to put discrete keyword, but you can just put discrete. Discrete keyword. So either 2 or 3 hours. And it's saying hours. So these are x values, right? Because we said hours are x values. So I'm going to just go ahead and start my table. X, 2, and 3. The cost in dollars. So cost in dollars, that's your y. The cost in dollars to rent the studio is a function of the number of hours, again, x, the studio is rented. So they just confirm for us our y and our x because y is a function of x. So if they're saying cost in dollars first, confirmation that cost is y, hours are x. What are the domain? Domain and range, so we're looking for both of the function for the situation. I already have my domain right here. It's 2 and 3, and that is it. So this one is right based off of that. That's not the domain, so that is wrong. All real numbers has to be for continuous data. I know it's discrete, and I know my domain is just 2 and 3, so that's wrong. All integers greater than or equal to 0. This is a domain for continuous data. This is discrete data, and I know it's just 2 and 3, so that's wrong. So pretty much, I was able to just do process of elimination for this one. But if I wanted to, I could also find my y, and I'll show you how to do that. To find my y, it says it's $85 per hour, so that's per 1 hour. But we're starting with 2. 85 plus 85 is 170. So that would actually be my first y. And then 170 plus 85 to figure out those 3 hours cost would be 255. And so I can confirm right here that that is the correct range as well. So now I 100% know I have the right answer. Let's go to the next question, which is very similar to the first. And you are going to have a very similar test question. A party hall can be rented for $150 per hour. So once again, they are telling us the slope where cost is the y and hours is the x. The hall can be rented for either being discrete. And if you want to pause and just answer this first, go ahead and do that. You might have already understood it from the first one, but discrete data keyword. Oops, I circled the 1 as well. For 1 or 4 hours. So we're talking about hours. So this would be an x value. This would be an x value. The cost in dollars to rent the hall is a function. Okay, so confirmation that cost in dollars is the y is a function of x. So whatever follows is the x of the number of hours. So we were right. The hall is rented. What are the domain and range of the function for the situation? So we're looking for both domain and range. My domain I already said is 1 and 4. And once again, you could do process of elimination. We just said our domain, our domain is 1 and 4. And the only one that has a domain of 1 and 4 is B. So we were able to do process of elimination again, but I can confirm what my y is as well. It's 150 per hour, so for 1 hour it's 150. And we're increasing by 150. 150 plus 150 would be, it actually wouldn't be 600. I think I typed this wrong. My bad. I'll fix it for y'all. But yeah, it would be B. I'll fix it for y'all though. Okay, let's go to the next one. So question 3 says a cyclist rode at a constant speed, I know it's linear, but that's just bonus information, for 15 seconds. The part of the linear function shown represents the distance the cyclist traveled in meters y, oh, they're telling me my y, in meters y, as a function of the time in seconds. Time in seconds is x. Time in seconds, yep, that checks out. That's our x. And distance in meters, yep, that's our y. It says, what is the domain? So we're only looking for the domain. Based off of that, and knowing the domain is the x-axis, I can delete D, Y, because it has a Y right here. And I know this is actually about range when there's a Y and they're asking me domain. So D is totally out of the question. So let's go ahead and find our domain. This is continuous data, so we're going to need these guys right here. And since it's continuous and we're talking about the x-axis, we're focused here, and then let's decide if it's going to be open or closed circle. So right here, it would be closed. And same thing, it's a closed circle, so we're using one of these. And we know we're going to have x in the middle. So this is what it's going to look like. So far, all of them look like that. And we are starting at 0. And we're ending right here in the middle of 14 and 16. So in the middle of 14 and 16 would be 15. So my answer is 0 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 15. Yeah, if you need to pause and replay, make sure you do that. I know this one was kind of a mouthful, but make sure you're taking your time and going at your own pace. So let's go to the next question. And start with, a part of a linear function is shown on the grid. So here is some linear function. What is the range? So we're focusing on the y-axis of the part of the linear function shown. Choose the correct answers from each drop-down menu to complete the sentence. The range is a set of all real numbers, and then blank and blank. So let's figure it out. So first of all, remind myself I'm looking only at the y-axis. Now let's see. Well, it's continuous, so we're going to need our little faces. Closed circle, closed circle. Our lowest value right here is between -4 and -6, so that would be -5. So -5 is less than or equal to y, because it's the y-axis, is less than or equal to our highest value in between 6 and 8, so that would be 7. So our highest value is 7. But our answer is not in this form, right? This is not how our answer choices look. So let's try to figure it out. Well, first of all, this is a greater than or equal to sign, or less than or equal to sign, and so is this one. So these are out, right? Because they just say greater than, these just say less than, so those are out. And then We have a -5 and a 0. 0 is never used, so that one's out. So here's my answer. And then looking at these, -5 is used, but I already chose it here. So the only other option is this one. So I was able to do process of elimination, but I want you to understand the reasoning behind it. But always know that like process of elimination is a great strategy for taking a test. Oops, my pelo. Okay, so let's try to do it with actual reasoning. We're always talking about the y, right? Because it's the range is. The range is, well, y is actually, it's getting eaten, right? So y is greater than or equal to -5, which is what we got right here. So I would write that on my paper if I had my little testing paper. Greater than or equal to -5. When I'm comparing y to 7, it's eating the 7, so the 7 is greater than. So y is less than the 7. So y is less than or equal to 7. And then that's another way I could have got my answers if I didn't do process of elimination. But that is all for this video. Now you are going to go to EdSite and answer the questions. They are going to take a little bit longer today. So please make sure that you are focused and raise your hand and ask questions whenever you need to.